congratulations, everyone, for this documentary, Rebel Hearts.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
It is a terrific documentary, very, very important to actually watch. So I'm going to shoot Pedro the very first question. What actually inspired you or sparked you to do this documentary about the Immaculate Heart?
Well, it's a great question, and one that I'm actually going to also throw it to another member of our team. The inception of the project began over 20 years ago with our writer-producer, Shawnee Isaac Smith, who really began documenting these extraordinary women of the Immaculate Heart community in the late 90s, early 2000s. Shawnee met via a mutual friend met the Immaculate Heart community and was really blown away by the story, rightfully so, and began interviewing them over a course of many years, and really, was very visionary and sort of like she saw that what a real, hidden gem of history this was and how much the story needed to be told. Number of years later, in 2015, Shawnee approached me with a dear friend and collaborator, producer Kira Carstensen, and showed me some of these interviews, these extraordinary interviews that she had amassed, and I was just blown away by the extraordinary spirit, tenacity of these women and foresight of these sisters, and I knew I had to help tell the story in any way I could. So I came on board as the director, and have been journeying along with them since then. Sort of continuing to film with Lenore and with a younger generation with Rosa, and and continuing to dig for the treasure troves of archival materials, from audio recordings, photographs, correspondence, and all these other amazing films and news footage from the time. So yeah, it's been a wonderful, incredible journey.
That must have been one great research process for you. That must have been a lot of fun. Lenore, Rosa, how much convincing did it take for you to participate in this documentary? Because it's a beautiful documentary, but to be on film is another thing.
Well, I was on a leadership team when Shawnee came over 20 years ago and asked our team to authorize her making the film. So from the very beginning, I was enthusiastic about documenting our story. There had been other films and other news stories, but she has been so dedicated to speaking with the main characters, Anita and Helen Kelley, Reif, who, and she filmed hours and hours. And when I went on marches, Shawnee was there carrying her camera and faithfully following the story as well as doing the research. So it wasn't hard to be on film, because I had such faith in her ability to capture the truth of who we are. And she was so gentle and great with everybody that she interviewed, and so honest and truthful. So I think it's because we all admired her and hoped that something good would emerge, and something great has come from all her work and all her efforts and her love for our community.
Rosa?
It wasn't hard. The people who put this film together really did all go through our leadership. And I trusted, and I trust our leadership. And the introductions were made. And for myself to share, it's not a problem. I mean, there's transparency there. Other things have been written about our community in the past years. To have the opportunity to put our story forward, what happened to us, is welcome. And the success of Anita Caspary's book, Witness to Integrity, made it even easier to open up the doors, so to speak, and to share what our history was during that time with Cardinal McIntyre.
Pedro, was it difficult to basically seek out a lot of the footage? Were there some footages that were harder than others?
Yes and no. I mean, it was a continuous process, actually, and one that Shawnee began before even I started. But yeah, I mean, the films of, for example, of Bayless Glasscock, Thomas Conrad, Haskell Wexler, who were all filming at the Immaculate Heart College and with the Immaculate Heart Sisters back in the 1960s. Those were some of the first ones that we that Shawnee found and got, and they in Bayless and Thomas and others were extremely generous with their films. Others, sort of other elements were kind of deep in archives somewhere, so we had to do a little bit further digging, and found the extraordinary audio recordings and correspondence and photographs. We kept coming. We were sort of the pestering filmmakers. I would always like, hey, do you have any more photographs? And is there any more of this particular time or any of this assembly? So we always came back knocking for more, hoping to find another hidden gem. And also looking at we've I think licensed from over almost 100 or just over 100 different archival sources. So this story was making headlines all over the world during that time, and so newspapers, the networks, there was always it was a lot of them had pieces that we sought out and thankfully found. So as I seek and you shall find, and that was very true for our archival efforts on this film.
Then I'm curious, is because Lenore, in the film, it has shown you a few times, old footage has shown you with the camera a few times. Any photographs or videos of yours showed up in the documentary, or did you keep that hidden for yourself?
Well, I taught film classes at Immaculate Heart College, so I used a still camera and film, but I couldn't find footage of what I had shot at art exhibits or student working. I was asked, and maybe someday I'll find stuff that I had shot. Yeah, I had a camera in hand at most of our gatherings.
For the sequel.
For the sequel, absolutely. Rosa, you were much younger before a lot of the situation actually went down. Do you think your life would have been different if you did go to the standard process like a lot of women did with Immaculate?
Oh, my life would have been very different, and I think it was something that was destined. I've shared with my community that I grew up in the Civic Center, Los Angeles Civic Center, and we were the last house in that neighborhood. We were surrounded, my family was surrounded by warehouses at that point. And so there were no schools, no public schools, because we were the only household. And when it was time to go to school, there were two Catholic schools available. One was Maryknoll and the other was St. Vibiana's. Maryknoll was a Japanese language school. I could not speak Japanese, so I wasn't going to go there. And St. Viviana's was with the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart. And so I ended up going there, and honestly, I had never seen a nun before. I was very sheltered. And so my mother takes me in there, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? And my first grade teacher came up to my mother when it was time, the bell rang. And my mother was reluctant about letting go of me. And she told my mother, you can leave her now, Mrs. Manriquez, she belongs to us now. And I thought, oh my goodness. But I mean, those were prophetic words, because everything, my whole formation, my whole way of looking at life was completed with the Immaculate Heart Sisters. That was something that I blended into my upbringing with my traditional Mexican family.
For the better, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Lenore, because you are part of that generation that actually had conflicts with the Cardinal McIntyre, do you still reserve any type of, I don't want to say animosity, but sort of like regrets versus McIntyre, or do you have a little bit of understanding on what he has done?
Well, I don't have any antipathy or animosity for the Cardinal. In fact, it became an opportunity for us to make decisions on our lives. And perhaps if we didn't have that challenge, we could have, like many communities did for a time, gone along with a male-dominated clergy that told us what to do. So another way of looking at it, other than a hostile environment, was opening the door to say things could be different. You could be self-determining. Nobody, the clergy, no one can tell you what to dress, when to pray, where to work. So I don't have any animosity. In fact, I feel gratitude that the door opened and we walked through it together. And that's the strength of our action, that we were in community.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that you don't miss wearing the habit.
Well, I loved wearing the habit when I had it. And then my sister, my older sister, was our consultant. Because almost after 20 years, we needed consultants, whatever our age, to do our hair, to dress, and so on. But I loved being a nun. I loved teaching. I loved our students. So it was for me a precious part of my life, and I welcomed the change. It was challenging. There were unanswered questions and no map. But we survived, and we're grateful to the team to capture our journey, and did a beautiful job.
That is terrific. And Pedro, could you talk about the animation and music that you actually used throughout the the documentary? It made it more very unique, very more exciting.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you pointed both out. The animation, at the core of it, we had a saying, and I say this a lot, but it's really true. And actually, I think I even have photographs of in the edit room. We had it up, and above it said these letters that said, "What would Corita do?" And for us in the team was a code for think outside the box, right? Think critically, think beyond the obvious answers, and look at what will really create this immersive experience to put put the audience in the shoes and the perspective of these extraordinary women. And, partially visually, it was how to bring something to life when sometimes we don't have all the elements that a film needs, visual elements. And that was, we thought with our amazing producer, Judy Corin, thought of animation. And connected with an extraordinary animator out of Montreal, an Icelandic animator called Una Lorentzen. And Una really fell in love with the story, and we, fell in love with the work of Corita Kent, and really kind of looked at that aesthetically. Every single frame of her animation feels like it's created with care and with artistry. And so we did a sample scene, and it really brought the story to life in a way we beyond our dreams. And in terms of the music, I mean, another way to immerse ourselves is with music from the times, and also music that maybe carries, that is a contemporary music, but it carries a certain spirit that feels appropriate to the story. And it was, because also this is a very current story. We were never thought about this as a film that's set in the past. It's a film that is really about who we are now and where we are. And I very much wanted it to dialogue with the present. And a way to do that was with music. And we also were working with an extraordinary music supervisor, Tracy McKnight. And via Tracy, we reached out to artists like Rufus Wainwright and Sharon Van Etten. And they were, again, blown away by the story and were very inspired. And each of them created a very special and unique song in which to capture the spirit. Sharon to open the film, and Rufus to end the film. So we're really lucky with all the extraordinary collaborators and the team that we were able to bring together to bring the story to life.
I think the pieces fell together very well. Speaking of Corita, Lenore, how well did you know Corita at that time, and how much she was a huge part of this movement?
Well, Corita and I lived at the Mother House. We both taught at the college, and we were good friends. I went to Columbia to get an MFA when I was asked by our superiors to help in the art department. So I was in the art department with Corita, and I took over the administrative duties that she didn't want to take care of. And I traveled with her to New York to local lectures. We were good friends. I learned much from her, and I missed her when she didn't return to the college. I took her place as chair of the department. But for so many who are in the film, Helen Kelley was a close friend of Corita. So as a community, among us, there was a bonding for some of us who taught at the college, because we were together a lot. So Corita was my best friend in the college community.
She was very influential, obviously. Let me lead with one more question for any of you here. As viewers and audiences have a chance to watch Rebel Hearts, what would you like for them, the one most important lesson that they would walk away with after watching this film? Anyone?
Rosa, Lenore?
To be faithful, to what you believe, to be faithful to your values, to be faithful to your friends, to trust the future, follow the spirit, do justice, and love one another.
Excellent answer. Rosa, you want to add on there?
Basically in the same way, and it's to trust the spirit, to trust that Holy Spirit that we Catholics believe in, to trust our own conscience, to know that there are steps in our lives that we have to take sometimes that can scare the heck out of us. But we're told over and over again to not be afraid, to not be afraid, to not be afraid. And to know that although there are prices to pay, not acting on what needs to be done brings a bigger price to pay. And sometimes our place in history is standing up to authority and saying, it stops here.
Well said. Well, congratulations, Pedro. Congratulations, ladies, with the documentary, and it's a great, beautiful film, and part of a greater movement. Thank you very much for bringing this story.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You. Thank you.
Thank you.